Hi, everyone. Welcome to our workshop on employment support for newcomers to Canada, sharing best practices. My name is Michelle Wynn, and I am the Peterborough Immigration Partnership Officer. Today, I've played many roles if you've attended the morning session, but for right now, I will be the tech and Zoom host during this meeting, and later on as a guest presenter. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 20 Michi-Saagiig territory and in the traditional territory of the Michi-Saagiig and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. I would like to invite us to reflect on and give thanks to the land on which we live and work and to the First Peoples who have cared for it. And I am now happy to introduce my colleague, Faye Tan, who is the Manager of Settlement Services at the New Canadian Centre. She will be presenting about the demographics and needs of our immigrant clients, as well as the best practices to support them during their employment journey. There will be opportunities to ask questions and share thoughts throughout the presentation, and we look forward to an open discussion at the end. So without further ado, I will pass the co-host access to Faye.
Hey, hi everyone, I'm Faye Tan. So just let me share my screen. PowerPoint right here. Is it good? Does everyone see it?
Yeah, Faye, you just need to press the slideshow button at the end. Yeah.
System's a little slow, I'm sorry.
Hey, we can see it now.
Okay. Oops. Okay. Okay. So yes, I won't be able to see you guys. So maybe Michelle, if you can kind of moderate and look at if there's questions in the chat, that would be helpful. If there's someone who has questions. Yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Faye Tan. I'm the Settlement Services Manager here at the New Canadian Centre. And today I've decided that I would like to present on employment support for newcomers to Canada. So I think a little bit of introduction on why this particular topic. I think recently we have seen a lot of increase in temporary residents, people who are international students, who are on work permits, and with these, there are a lot of other needs that come out through having served clients of temporary resident status. And I've also been getting a lot of questions from community partners in terms of how best to support our newcomer job seekers. So I would say for these particular today's presentation, my goal really is to be able to provide a little more insights into the immigration part of our newcomer job seekers, and to kind of show how one's immigration status can really have an impact on a newcomer's journey in terms of what kind of jobs they look for on and the kind of timeline that they are in. Okay, so yeah. So this is kind of the brief agenda of today's what I'm going to talk about. And also just to note at the end there, Michelle will be presenting on English at the Workplace program. So I'll leave some time for her. So I'm also hoping that it will be more of, if you have questions, you could ask as we go. Also happy to take questions at the end. But if you have something you would like me to clarify, it'd be nice if you would just ask. That would be good. Okay, so introductions for the New Canadian Centre. Most of you are aware of who we are and what we do, where we're located on 221 Romaine Street, right across the YMCA. So our catchment area is we serve immigrants and refugees in the Peterborough area, Haliburton, Northumberland, and Kowada Lakes. So it is a pretty big catchment area. So with that, we do have different modes of services. We do have drop-in services every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. A newcomer can come anytime between 9:30 to 4 o'clock to walk in for registration, to get help on mainly single issues. If the issue is a little bit bigger, then usually we would schedule for future appointments. We are mainly funded by the federal government, Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada. We also receive funding from provincial government, self-generated, United Way. So because we receive from multiple funders, our services are open to all newcomers regardless of status. So you can be a visitor, on study permit, on work permit, permanent residence, or even a naturalized Canadian citizens. We would serve you the same. So we have two main pillars in terms of what we do here at the NCC. One is client services and the other is community development. So client services, as it said, is directly related to working with clients. So I'll explain a little bit on community connections. So community connections is basically things like programs that we run, regular programs such as English conversation groups, English beginner classes, intermediate classes, women's group, youth weekly activities, and we also have monthly activities such as trips, potluck, presentation, workshops. So those are our community connections, is to get newcomers to engage in the community and our program. So now we get into settlement and employment services. So settlement services is really a big part of what we do. As I've mentioned earlier, that when we do drop-in services and we do like an intake, when we first see a client, we do a full needs assessment of going through every single thing. It's like, okay, when do you first arrive to Canada? What is your current immigration status? Do you have a health card? Do you have your SIN number? Do you have a work permit? Have you found a family doctor? Have you registered your kids in school? So it's a very just getting all the details of a newcomer's current situation, getting to know where they're at right now. Because when we get a newcomer that walks through our doors, it's, many could be brand new. They could have arrived a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And we have some that have been here for 4 to 5 years, but just learn about the New Canadian Center, but they have new needs. Okay, so as said here, is anything from healthcare, finding childcare, citizenship application, and we also do sometimes assist with sponsorship applications. Again, just to note that we are not immigration consultants. We are not able to provide advice on what's best for clients to do. But basically, we are really able to kind of help and direct them in terms of understanding what is stated on the Immigration Canada's website and kind of help them to navigate that very complicated website, yes, with all the information. Next is employment services. So employment is a really huge part of a newcomer's settlement journey. I would say about 80% of the clients that walks through our doors, one of their requests would be, I need to find a job. And currently, we have one full-time employment counselor, Olga Stetchuk, and we also have 3 full-time settlement services staff. So Olga helps with job search, resume, cover letter, also do orientation, talk about Employment Standard Acts, also talk about, we do preparation for pre-employment, we do job interview preparation as well. And also something to note is that we are not funded by Employment Ontario. so that if there is any programs that we see that our clients are eligible, we would refer them to like EduLec, EPC, or YMCA, to any of the other EO centers. The other thing that we do is we do have a language assessment that we assess newcomers who are eligible, so that we can refer them to English language training. I'm just going to stop here for a bit. Is there any questions? Sorry, I can't really see you guys, so I don't know. Any questions so far? Okay. Good.
Christine has a question.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Faye. Just a couple of quick questions. One is related to referral or the services for something like tax forms, completing the tax forms. Is there a time limit for being in Canada or in Peterborough for a client to access this service, or it's open for any client?
Right. So that's a good question. So we are running a tax clinic. We do run it every year. So the volunteers who will be helping us is actually the Happy Wanderers. They also run tax clinics in the community. But if specifically filing with us, we do provide interpretation if there's needed. So we will hire interpreters. We have staff who speaks different languages. And our tax clinics are run on March 27th, April 5th, 10th, and 22nd, coming up soon. So in terms of time limit, we actually do not have at this point a time limit on how long you have to like if you have been in Canada says for 4 to 5 years, it's still okay. But the requirement that is set by the volunteers is that it has to be is the family income. So it has to be less than 45,000. So that really is the only restrictions that we have, and it's really not set by us. It is set by the volunteers.
Yeah. Okay, that's great to know, because some learners have been here for a while and we're wondering if they can still access the service or it's only for those who are just like recent comers, because there are other ones in the community, but there's no interpretation services provided.
Yeah, we understand that. I know one of the top priorities is definitely filing income tax, right?
I don't think there's any need for me to watch this, but at least then I'll feel like
just a reminder to mute yourself if you're not part of the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah. So sorry. So we'll definitely refer the clients to us, and we can definitely set them up. So, as we say that settlement in Canada takes a while, right? That's for some who are English language learners, it might take many years before they can become fluent enough to understand forms. So this is part of our essential service that we provide for newcomers, definitely to file their taxes. Okay.
Sure. And one other quick question regarding the assessments. So do you provide a fee for service for language assessments, or it's just through the ones that are funded through the government?
Right. So I'll cover this a little bit more later. So in terms of language assessment, we only do the government funded language assessment. We do not do anything such as IELTS, CELPIP, or PTE. So those are high stakes level language assessments that can be used for immigration and Canadian citizenship application. So the one that we do is really only meant to refer clients into English classes or some of the training programs.
Sure. I'm actually talking about the same assessment, but for a visit, like a student or people who are holding visitor's visa or a student visa rather than permanent residents.
Oh, I see. So no, unfortunately, we don't have that option of like for people to pay us, to do the assessment. It's like we have to account for anybody that we do the assessments for to the government who funds us, which is both federal and province. Yeah.
Thank you, Faye.
Hey, thank you. Okay. So a little bit of demographic on our current clients. So in the past year, so this is stats from for the last fiscal year, we have 1997 unique clients. So we served 1,997 unique clients last year. So these are both new clients and returning clients. And these are our top 10 countries. Syria, Ukraine, India, Afghanistan, Nigeria, Philippines, Iran, Mexico, Pakistan, China. And that is our top 10 languages. Okay. So what are the immigration status of NCC clients that we serve? So out of the 197, more than half of them are new and the other half are returning. So you can see here in terms of the immigration status breakdown, almost half of clients that we serve are permanent residents. And we have some that are international students, workers, visitors, and we also do get a lot of naturalized citizens. That means people who have been through the process of immigration and then becoming Canadian citizens. We also a small percentage of refugee claimants, temporary resident permit. The ones that are unaccounted for is sometimes when we serve a client, they did not disclose their status, and at that time of service, we are not able to get their immigration status. Okay, I'm gonna, move on. Okay, so I want to get a little bit more into the immigration pathway. So for understanding the statuses here in Canada, there is temporary and then there's permanent. So for temporary, we have visitors, someone who is on visitor status. So someone who is on visitor status basically have usually up to 6 months to stay in Canada until they have to renew their visitor status in order to continue staying in Canada. For students, so we're talking about international students. And we mainly talk about post-secondary international students. So as we know, we have Fleming College and Trent University. So as of this moment, so prior to today, international students in college, like a full-time diploma program, or even in undergrad full-time program, master's, PhD programs, they can bring family members. So that would include their spouse and their children. So the spouse, they would have gotten what we call an open work permit. And then the child, they would come under a visitor record. So a child whose parent is an international student, they can go to school, public school for free. They don't have to pay international fees. However, these all are changing actually as of today. So the federal government has changed the rules that any new applications from now on is that only students, international students of master's or doctoral level and certain fields that are of professional, like medicine or like registered nursing programs, where you can, only these programs are allowed to bring family members. So why I bring this up is that I think the community will see a slight change in like the demographic of who we serve. So under the workers, so this is not an exhaustive list, but I've listed here some of what a work permit holder, what programs they would come under. And some of these work permits would be a closed work permit, and some would be an open work permit. So what does a closed work permit mean? So if you're on closed work permit, it means that this worker is tied to the particular employer. So you're only allowed to work for a specific employer that is listed on the work permit. It would specifically say for this organization, for this company. If it's an open work permit, so the client is basically really able to work across Canada and in most of the occupation. There's very minimal restrictions towards it. Okay. Okay, so The next one that I want to go into is, so this is the one that I really want to get into a little bit of details, which is something that I get a lot of questions for, also for clients themselves to also understand what they're eligible and what they're not eligible for. And before I get into it, I just want to take a moment to say why is this important? So when we serve a newcomer client, like a newcomer job seeker, for us, when we see a client in front of us, the first thing we do is that we need to know their immigration status. And when we know, for example, if someone on a postgrad work permit, automatically there is this whole web link that comes out in my head that's like, okay, this person may have up to 3 years of an open work permit. They may have their spouse here, they may not have their family members here. And I start thinking of all the things that they are eligible for and what they may not be eligible for. And one thing to note of like people who are on a postgrad work permit is that it is dependent upon how many years of studies that they have completed prior to getting the work permit. So if a student completed 1 year of, say, a diploma program, they are likely only able to entitle to a 1 year postgrad work permit. If they done a 2 full year program, they are entitled up to 3 years of open work permit. So understanding these timeline is, I would say for us, is the essential way, is essential, because then we know how much of a rush is it for someone on a postgrad work permit in order to find that job, because we know that a lot of students who on the postgrad work permit, they have the goal of immigrating to Canada. And there is a big difference that a lot of what you can do between a 1 year postgrad work permit and a 3 year postgrad work permit. Also to note, the postgrad work permit is non-renewable, as in you can only apply once ever. If you apply for it and then you decided halfway through your postgrad permit, say your 2nd year postgrad work permit, you decided to go back to your home country or to continue studying your master's program, understand that you are basically forfeiting the rest of your work permit, that you will not be able to apply for a new one. So, so as stated here, someone who is a postgrad work permit are not eligible for government-funded language training, not eligible for Ontario Works, which is social assistance. They are also not eligible for healthcare. However, according to requirements for OHIP, if they have full-time work that is of at least 6 months, they would be eligible to apply for OHIP. Again, this is something that is important to take note, because part of our counseling towards someone on postgrad work permit is, to suggest to them that it would be a good idea to apply for private insurance. But again, it's very difficult when you don't have a job. Where do you find the money of like $100 a month to be putting into private health insurance? So in so many ways, there is also that anxiety, the extra anxiety for someone on a postgrad work permit when they think about what's going to happen to them in terms of like, if something happens, if an emergency happens, they have no coverage. International students are covered by UHIP, which is insurance from the school. But the moment you graduate, you either try to get OHIP as soon as possible, or there is really no other options but private insurance. So the pathway usually for someone on postgrad work permit is permanent residence through the economic class, which is express entry or provincial nominee program, which I will go a little bit into details later. Something to take note of for when they have their postgrad work permit, they applied for permanent residence based on the job that they have. They still need to make sure that they maintain their status if they want to continue staying in Canada. Understanding that applying for permanent residence does not automatically grant you the right to continue staying. There are many times or situations where a client's postgrad work permit is about to expire and they have just submitted their application for permanent residence. So what then is their option? They could, one, request for their employer to submit what we call a labor market impact assessment to issue an closed work permit. So they could ask the employer to basically hire them on a closed work permit basis so that they could ensure of their continuous working for that particular company. The other option is many may have chose to return home to wait while the process of the permanent residence application is being processed. Okay. Any questions on someone who's on postgrad work permit? So the other category of class that I would like to talk about on who is on open work permit is Q8. So the Canada-Ukrainian Authorization for Emergency Travel. So this program has essentially closed last year, so they are no longer taking any new applications. So until the end of this month, Ukrainians would need to make their way into Canada. They need to enter Canada before March 31st for their visa to be valid. So upon arriving at the port of entry, someone on the Kuwait program can receive an open work permit. So this open work permit is good for up to 3 years.
Oh, this would have been good.
Sorry?
I think someone forgot to mute themselves again.
Okay. Yes. So again, seeing that there is a difference in terms of what someone on Kuwait is eligible for. So they are eligible for government-funded language training. They are eligible for emergency assistance from Ontario Works. They are eligible for OHIP. They are not eligible for OSAP, but based on my understanding that I know is many post-secondary institutions, and I believe Fleming and Trent, are offering domestic fees for those who are on a Kuwait visa. One of the options for permanent residence for Kuwait is permanent residence through the economic class. There is also a special measures pathway specifically for Ukrainians. However, there is very limited in terms of like who can apply for this pathway. So the Ukrainians who are here in Canada need to have relatives who are Canadian citizens. So the Canadian citizens would have to sponsor their relatives who are Ukrainians to become permanent residents. So this has really narrowed down in terms of who can access this special pathway. So that's also the humanitarian pathway. So a thing to note is that some of their benefits for Kuwait residents would be expiring next year, March 31st, 2025, such as settlement services like government-funded language training is looking to expire by next year, March 31st. Just waiting. Any questions? Okay. And then the other group of work permit status that we see a lot of recently is refugee claimants. So who are refugee claimants? So refugee claimants are basically when they are considered temporary status because their case is currently in process and they are waiting for Immigration Canada to decide if their case is eligible refugee case. So in order for them to gain permanent residence, they would need what we call a positive decision hearing. So this process really can take 2 years to 5, 6, 7 years. It's really hard to say depending on the caseload, on the situation. So refugee claimants can apply for an open work permit. They are also eligible for language training, eligible for Ontario Works. They are not eligible for OHIP upon getting refugee claimant status, but they do qualify for IFHB, which is the Interim Federal Health Program. I would say some places would take this IFHP, but there are some physicians who don't. So what we recommend our clients is usually to call ahead to ask the physicians if they would take IFH. They are, again, not eligible for OSAP, but they may qualify for domestic fees depending on the educational institution. So these are some of, so these are mainly the work permit, open work permit holders that we see the most of here at the New Canadian Center. And when we serve a client, I think a huge part is for us to empathize their journey here, right? Is understanding, okay, employment is a key component, but they're also going through so many different things. If they don't have a job, what's going to happen for their family members who are here? Are the spouse able to work? Can we find childcare? And if they don't have a job, are they able to apply for Ontario Works? So those are the many different aspects to kind of think about when we serve our clients. And we sometimes find it especially hard for someone who is on a postgrad work permit, who's not able to find a survival job to basically put food on the table. Yeah. Okay. So, oops. Yes. Okay. Sorry, it's a bit lagging. Okay. So now to kind of move on to permanent status. So we talk about some of the temporary status and what is their pathway towards immigration. So firstly, to understand a little bit the big picture of permanent residency. So there's three main class on how newcomers can immigrate to Canada. The first one is family class, the other one is economic class, and the third is the refugee and humanitarian class. I just put a little side note here. The immigration targets for 2024 is 485,000 of new permanent residents, and about 60% of that would come from economic immigrants. So Canada does really focus on economic immigrants. And you see here under the economic class, there are a few ways in terms of how to immigrate to Canada. And what I'm going to talk about next is the Express Entry program, which is the most popular program of how most of our clients would immigrate for economic class. Okay, so under the Express Entry manages three programs: the Canadian Experience Class, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and the Federal Skilled Trades Program. Express Entry is a points-based system. If a client is eligible under one of these three programs, then they can submit their application, basically a profile, into this Express Entry pool. So once you're in the pool, the government does this thing called like a regular draw. They would draw individual profiles from a pool that either it meets like a minimum score. So currently the scores are around 500 something, 540. And from what I can say about a score of 540, that is actually really challenging and really high. It is not easy to be able to get a score that is that high. What you would need is, you would really need high language scores. So part of the requirement here is you need to take a language test. Again, these are high stakes tests like IELTS, CELPIP, and Pearson tests. The minimum requirement for some of these programs, for example, the Federal Skilled Trade Program, may be only a CLB level 5. But a CLB level 5 may only give you, like, say, for example, a score of like 3. If you get a CLB of level 8, you may get like a score of 10 to put into your Express Entry profile. So this point system is kind of what determines if you get selected from within this pool. Key to be eligible for these three Express Entry programs is that the newcomer would require a skilled work in jobs that are of category 0, 1, 2, or 3. So I think there are a few EO counselors here, and you may have heard that, you know, a lot of newcomers who are on an open work permit, this is their goal, is that, yes, survival jobs are great, but at the end of the day, this is what they're working towards, is that they're working towards a job that gives them, that is of this NOC level. And they need to be in these job positions for at least a 1 year full-time amount. So basically 1 year full-time to qualify under the Canadian Experience Class and the Federal Skilled Trade Worker Program. So I kind of want to talk back a little bit on, for example, someone on a postgrad work permit. So if your goal is to at least get a 1 year of full-time work experience under the NOC 0, 1, 2, or 3, we all know that may not be the easiest thing to do, especially for someone who does not have any Canadian experience. It's very difficult to kind of get a job that is a supervisory role or manager of somewhere, or something that is of a professional level. For example, a receptionist position will not qualify under the tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. That is a tier level 4 job. Something like administrative assistant also does not qualify. So you would require a job position that is at least of a college diploma or university degree. So when we look in terms of a 3-year open work permit, one thing that we realize is that, okay, after graduation, you may not land your dream job. So you might start off with like a basic survival job, or you might get a job that is part-time, may not be in your field. And then sometimes you try to work your way towards finding a job of this tier. And I think this is one of the main challenges that a lot of international students are facing, is how do they get themselves on this path? Yeah. So before I move on, I don't know if you guys have any questions, or like you guys want to talk about someone's on open work permits, the pathway, or anything about the express entry. Yeah, I guess that no. Oops. Okay. So so that again is one of the big ways that one can immigrate into Canada. So that is why the importance of our role as employment counselors, as employment support, is to help newcomers navigate that system is through this process. So of course, we do not only serve someone who is on open work permit, we also serve job seekers who are also permanent residents. So when someone who is a permanent resident, they are funded for all the above: government-funded language training, social assistance, OHIP, OSAP. And as you can see on the right, we have permanent residents in very much different categories. We receive government-assisted refugees. We have privately sponsored refugees. We have many individuals from the family class, which is where spouses are being sponsored. We get parents and grandparents who are being sponsored. So it is a pretty diverse group of immigrants who does come to Peterborough. Sorry. So I think some of you may have attended the previous session. So in a lot of our sessions, when necessary, we definitely do use interpretation and interpretation services. So we do have a list of community interpreters. They are paid on an hourly rate. They are vetted by our staff, but they may not be professionally trained or certified. But it is for us. It has been really good resource. It has been also convenient in terms of like their ability to do in-person interpretation. Where possible, also do use professional interpretation service, such as MCIS, Language Line, COTIS, or New Canadian Center have contracts with some of these professional organizations, and they provide services through phone calls, video calls, and in person if necessary, but the cost is really quite high if you're going to do in person through those organizations. One thing that we find with using interpreters is that it really does reduces that language barrier. When we do, for example, our employment orientation, we want to explain, say, the Employment Standard Act, say a client from Syria. One thing that we always say, just because someone is not fluent in English or may not know how to speak English, it does not always equate to them not being able to do a job, right? We have many newcomers who are so highly qualified, but it's so difficult for them to get recognized for their credentials, for their experiences, mainly because they may not be fluent in English. So it has definitely been very helpful for us to use interpreters for many situations. I guess a suggestion would be is that we do have a budget line. So when you do request from your funders, when you discuss budget with your funders, to perhaps include interpretation services as part of your yearly budget.
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I couldn't find where to raise my hand for some reason. I'm just curious about when someone is getting help with a resume or cover letter, do you use interpretation services then?
Resume and cover letter, yes. If it's necessary, for sure. If so the other thing to kind of gauge, right, is that is part of it is when we understand and know someone's level. It also helps us to know kind of how or who do we refer clients to, or to which employers to connect to. So really depending, so English language is essential in so many jobs, right? Like a newcomer cannot be in a it would be very challenging for a worker to be working in a position that requires them to be, say, fluent in that language. So if it's just like a basic resume or cover letter, and they're looking for perhaps a job that may not require that high level of English, then absolutely, we definitely will use an interpreter for the services. I don't know.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Because there's a fee, like you said, so it would be tricky to navigate if everybody needed that type of support. There must be online things as well. I mean, I'm not the best with technology, but where you can put something in one language and it converts it to English when doing a resume.
Yeah, I guess there are. I mean, our counselors use multiple different tools, right? Like Google Translate, any kind of translation tools, and it could be inputted in there, and then after it's being translated, you have that document. I guess as a native English speaker, you would help with correcting the grammar or anything, that is within that scope. Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely one of the tools that is being used.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Fari.
Yeah. I just
Hey,
want
Barry,
to
go
share,
ahead.
I just want to share what I've done, especially with cover letters or resumes. Because I find that some of the clients, they can't really explain what they've done. So what I usually do is I'll go to the job bank, right? Let's say if it's a job for an apprentice, I'll go to the job bank and then I will download the description and the requirements. And then I translate that into the client's language so that at least they can understand. And then I ask them to indicate to me what they did, based on the job bank job description. So I found that to be very helpful, to use with clients who can't really express themselves.
Yeah, that sounds like that's definitely an excellent idea. Sorry, thank you for sharing that. Okay. Oh, is it Nicole?
Hi, Faye. Sorry.
Hi,
I
Nicole.
threw a quick question in the chat
Oh.
directly to you. I don't know if I'm happy to read it off or if you want to read it off, and just if you had any insight.
Yeah,
on
you
what-
can read it. You can read it out if you.
Sure. So for everyone, my name's Nicole Sullivan, and I work for Trent University as a community housing coordinator. So I support students with their housing needs. And something that I hold is an emergency housing fund for our students as financial support. And what we're seeing a lot of our students through their applications is that they are struggling to find employment, and some of them going as far as saying that we're in a job crisis. Employment is not my expertise. And so Faye, I just wasn't sure if you had any sort of insight on what you're seeing students or like just the population in general, what they're seeing with employment in the Peterborough area.
So absolutely. I think so. So part of why this whole discussion and this whole presentation really is just for me, for the New Canadian Center to start up on this conversation about what we are seeing. And it's basically what we're seeing is what you're seeing, is that there is a huge difficulty of international students to even find like survival jobs, like Walmart or like types of jobs, working in restaurants, like any kind of basic employment. It has been a struggle. So I can give you an sort of like an average. Every week, I say on a weekly basis, we see about 15 to 20 international students, like individual international students. And I would say 99% of these students would ask about employment. And part of our messaging is so this is where we are starting to wonder. It's like, okay, why are all international students coming here? So we've had discussions with Trent, we've had discussions with Fleming. Part of it is that we are trying to encourage things like referring them back to like career space to get job search help. But then, eventually, I think we're also starting to realize is that they may have already gotten all of the support. They may have already also seen our counselors. But the big issue here is just is it just because there is no job? I'm wondering the same thing. I'm wondering what really is the issue here. Yeah, I mean, we have seen an increase of like international students, and there is currently, if you may be aware, there is a cap. The federal government has put on a cap for international students and how many internationals would come during this new fiscal year into Canada. I cannot speak too much on that as of this moment. But from basically to answer your question is yes, we are seeing a lot of job seekers of international students who are not able to find jobs. and that has a huge impact on them in terms of like their well-being. We are getting referrals from for other community organizations telling us about like, there's a mental health crisis that is going on increasingly more in this demographic of population. We are getting people on postgrad work permit, international students who needs a lot of like financial help, right? So
Thank you. No, thanks.
Just a comment on international students too is that international students are expected to come with a certain amount of funding when they submit their application for a study permit and to come to Canada. So one thing that we've realized is that usually the first few months, international students are doing well because they have that money. But as that fund starts to peter out and they've been here for a few months trying to find jobs and they cannot find a job, and I think that's when we really see that crisis really starting to happen. Is sometime in like November, December, we see a lot of international students during that time with the same kind of circumstances. Okay, and then I'm just gonna move forward.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes,
Sorry.
for sure.
Hi, so I'm Lindsay with the Chamber. One thing I just wanted to say about the international students, one thing that we found is with the Canada Summer Jobs Program, because we hire for those every summer. And when we initially put out our application, we just weren't aware that international students don't qualify for it. And it's not really promoted too clearly on the Canada Summer Jobs website. It just says, if you have this and this, then you can apply. And it doesn't mention like, you can't be a Canada Summer Job student until like, once you go deeper into looking at it. But what we found was the vast majority of the applications that we got were from international students. And so it was just like tough from our perspective because we had a lot of good candidates that we would have liked to have considered, but we couldn't because they weren't eligible for it. And like I can see like if the government is saying, we're spending this money on people who are, in the country and staying in the country and all whatever their argument is there, it's tough when we're trying to provide experience to international students to encourage them to stay here, and that's not an avenue, that we can take to help them with that. And also it seems like, and you could speak more to this, but in terms of, the difficulty level in finding that first job, I imagine is more difficult for a new Canadian or an international student than it is for someone who was born and raised here and, has a different cultural background or appearance or that kind of thing. So it's just unfortunate that it seems to be another barrier that's put up for them.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Lindsay. Yes, that's definitely one of it. That's why part of it is helping them do up a Canadian style resume. But then again, it's hard to kind of know or measure like the potential discrimination that a lot of newcomers face, right? Like if they have a name that is not Canadian sounding, or what is it? It has a ethnic name to it. If they're not Peter, Paul, or John, like are they automatically not considered for the position? Like it's hard to say. Yes, but I think a lot of this is also perhaps there is also a lot of work to be done in terms of us working with employers. The community is to work with employers on having them to hire more newcomers. And there have been presentations that we have worked with Trent University and Fleming College. Presentation that is, I believe, that we presented at the chamber as well, in terms of why should employers hire immigrants, newcomers, and the benefits of it. Yeah, and also understanding that with it, there is also perhaps the need to provide some extra support. It could be language support, it could be extra training support that may have to come with hiring a newcomer, as one adjusts to employment in Canada. So those are some of the things that are also in the works. Yeah. So I'm just gonna quickly try to also finish this up. So the other big topic that people do ask is credential evaluation. So we do here at the NCC, we do talk a lot about this with our clients, but we do it in a very reserved manner in terms of sometimes newcomers think they absolutely need to have their credentials evaluated, but we really just firstly go to what is your purpose of doing it. Is it for immigration? Then yes, you can get points for your express entry. If it's for academic admissions or for regulated professions, this is where we will kind of like ask them, take a step back first, check out the regulatory body, refer them to the academic institutions. Do you really need these before you go ahead and do the evaluation, which may cost like hundreds of dollars? And again, different regulatory body and different academic institution may require different kinds of a report. Is it a course by course? Is it document by document? Yeah, so we would definitely work with them and the regulated body or organization in terms of if they need this done. So the other part is language assessment. So I've kind of talked about this. So language assessment is done here at New Canadian Centre, Peterborough. So what we measure is the Canadian language benchmark. So why I think this is a helpful tool for us is that with our employment counselors, I know that we do ask what does their CLB level scores. It helps us kind of gauge their level of English, because someone may be speaking fluently in English but may not read or write as well as they speak. So, and then vice versa, right? Some clients are really good at writing, but because they don't practice speaking, they may not have that level. But perhaps for this particular job, speaking a lot of English is not that necessary, because they may be able to just work on the computer. So part of why I find that the language assessment is very helpful. If you do have clients who are eligible, who are like permanent residents or who are on a Kuwait program, definitely ask them, straight up, have you done a language assessment with the New Canadian Centre? That could be helpful in terms of like how you work with the clients in terms of like helping them with their job search. Yes, so just these are eligibility. Again, just to stress, visitors, students, and most work permit holders do not qualify for these language assessments. Yes, so coming to the end. So in terms of language training and skills development, so sorry, Michelle. So Michelle has a short presentation that she would like to share with us on her English in the Workplace program. So I would just hand it on to you first. Sorry, we're kind of
Okay, thank you, Faye.
Okay. How do I stop sharing? Oh no.
Yeah, I can stop it for you.
Okay, thank you.
And then spotlight. Does everyone just want to take a little stretch or a little breather before I go into mine? I know it's been a long day of presentation, so I don't mind if you have to do your thing in the background. Like here, and then share my screen. Okay, I'm assuming you can see it now. Okay. Okay, sure. Thank you everyone for attending this presentation, and I'm learning a lot from Faye so far. As you've been hearing, there are a lot of challenges and barriers to newcomers finding employment and just getting that first opportunity. And we're trying to, oh, it's like jumping ahead for me, but we're trying to identify like one of the gaps and provide supports for it. So a lot of our employers within Peterborough do recognize the skills that immigrants bring, but sometimes their language skills might be limited. So we're trying to bridge that gap by sending in an English as an additional language instructor to the workplaces to design customized lesson plans over the course of 12 weeks so that they can improve on their communications and any other language task based activities they will need to thrive in their job. And it's through the partnership of these local employers that we're able to bring this program to newcomer employees. So today, I will share an overview of what the program is and also give examples of some of the case studies that have been done so far, because I recognize that a lot of you here have already heard about this program through other meetings. So I want to at least share some new information to you and just to share about this resource to those who have not heard about it. And because we've been listening for a while, I think I will play this video so that we get a little change. Let me just figure out how to do that. Sorry, 1 second. You'll have to let me know whether the sound works, or else I'll have to do it again. A second.
No, I don't hear anything.
Can you hear anything?
No.
No? Okay. Let's try that again. Share sound. Okay. The New Canadian Centre and the Peterborough Immigration Partnership are proud to offer the English in the Workplace program. It is a free and customizable 12-week language training program for newcomers to strengthen their on-the-job English skills.
When Brittany came to me and she asked me if I would like to participate in this program, I was beyond happy.
I first met Olga during the interview process. She was quite nervous, she was quite timid. So obviously when this came across my desk, Olga was the first person to come to mind.
Improving my English at workplace influenced my communication and understanding. It makes my work less stressful and more effective. The classes were very productive. My teacher personalized it for myself. I was in the class one-on-one. I learned a lot of new words, grammar. After the classes, I feel more confident. I'm not afraid to ask questions, to start conversation. I feel more comfortable.
Participating in the program was definitely important to Olga. She really enjoyed the experience. From a company aspect of things, I feel that there was an increased motivation, increase of job satisfaction. For the company values, there's an increase in retention and productivity and problem solving. I would definitely recommend this program for other employers. Not only is it going to increase your diversity and inclusion, it's also going to increase your credibility and your reliability and retention within the workforce.
For more information about the English in the Workplace program, please visit nccpeterborough.ca/English-learning. Okay, I hope it didn't lag for other people. I think it did in a bit, but I can go over some of the information that was shared in that video. But NEFAB generously was one of our first participants in the launch of English in the Workplace. So we're really grateful that they were open to this opportunity and that it was a positive experience for both the employer and the employee that participated. So this program is for those who already have employment and their immigration status can be anything, as long as they are either living or working in Peterborough. And of course, it is important that the employer and the employee are interested in the language training and in general wanting to build a more diverse and inclusive workplace. And I say that we prioritize people who live and work in Peterborough, but in some cases, we have been able to provide this program to those who work in Peterborough County or are a bit flexible in how we deliver this program. So how it works is that over 12 weeks, there are 2 classes per week, and each class is 1.5 hours. For workplaces that aim to condense those hours into a shorter amount of time, that is okay with us if it's okay with our instructor. So we just say that as long as it's 36 hours in total. Ideally, we want to promote this program on site at work and during work hours so that employees are being paid for their time enrolled in this language training. And we want it to be on site because one of the barriers for immigrants in attending language lessons is that it's someplace that they have to find transportation to get to or set aside more time out of their day to attend. And we want to make it as accessible and convenient for them as possible and as relevant to their workplace responsibilities. The design of the classes is that it's often done one-on-one with the English additional language instructor. We're open to having it in small classes, but what we've been finding from employers is that it's often just one newcomer employee at a time that would like to be part of the program. And the lessons can be very customizable. So these can include working on things like workplace vocabulary and terminology, improving customer service skills, learning about workplace communication and teamwork, as well as reading pay stubs, writing emails, letters, or in general, just learning about Canadian workplace culture and norms. So who can refer participants to this program? Really, I'm open to anyone, but if I were to specify, I've had referrals from New Canadian Centre staff, employment counselors, other employment organizations, newcomer employees themselves, NCC volunteers who provide some level of language tutoring, or in general, PIT partners who have learned about this program. So generally, I will receive an email about someone expressing interest in this program, and then I will set up a meeting with them. But I have also outlined the process to participate here. So whether you call or email me, as long as you express your interest, I will then just make sure that you are eligible for this program. And then I will try to organize a meeting between myself, the employer, the employee, and the English instructor to outline the goals that we want to work towards by the end of the 12 weeks. With that information, the instructor will then create a lesson plan, and then the classes will begin. And then after that, there are some check-ins that I will conduct with the employee and the employer to make sure things are going okay, and just to gather their feedback by the end of the program. To provide a few examples of the people that we have worked with through this program, I'm going to share some of the case studies here. So like I said, ideally, the classes will take place in person. So for both Shamong Home Hardware and NEFAB, that was the case. So we've worked with employers who were packaging suppliers or who also worked in retail construction. So their objectives and their language levels varied. But in both cases, it was just one client per class. And depending on their language level and what their job at the work site was, the learning goals also were diverse too, whether it was learning how to better communicate with their coworkers and understanding specific jargon related to their work, or it was to be able to write emails and understand or interpret documents related to like their health benefits and safety guidelines, etc. More recently, we've also started classes with an employee from the Kawartha Butter Tart Factory and also someone who's working in a janitorial position at Cameron Steel. So you can see that like the workplaces are quite diverse. Their English levels are also different, and the learning goals can be customized and are flexible depending on what was discussed with the employer and employee, and then communicated with the English instructor. So those were in person, and in cases where the schedules just didn't work out for them to attend classes in person, the English instructor can also accommodate virtual lessons or a mix of hybrid and in-person. And we say that ideally it's in person because also depending on their English level and their ability to navigate like technology and the computer, sometimes when they already have a language barrier, adding that remote or hybrid virtual piece becomes another obstacle in their learning. So we really try to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. And sometimes, depending on the nature of their work, it is possible to find a space at their workplace to hold classes, and other times for safety reasons or convenience reasons where, for example, the employee at Curtis Construction moved to different sites on a regular basis. It just made more sense for them to be remote. So we will find that out during our initial meeting between all the partners and participants involved. So overall, what we've been finding about the benefits of this program, and Shannon, I will get to you after. I'll just complete the slide first. What we've been finding about the benefits of this program is that newcomer employees really do strengthen the language at their specific pace and based off of their specific needs. They've been able to connect better with their coworkers when they gain confidence in their improving language skills, and they gain a bit more sense of independence at the workplace. I think that both the employer and the employee appreciate that the program is very flexible, that it's focused on task-based lessons, and it's responsive to their needs. And then overall, what I've been enjoying seeing in this program is how supportive employers have been towards whatever needs that their newcomer employees have. And while they do have some ideas on what language skills are needed to like improve their performance at the workplace, at the end of the day, it's about empowering their employees and making sure that they, feel comfortable and are appreciated at their workplace, wherever their skills are currently at. And I guess I will invite Shannon to ask her question.
I just had a quick question about, so they have to be employed. Do they have to be employed for a certain length of time, or would, volunteering count? Would a paid placement count?
Sorry, my internet is a bit weak here, so that I couldn't hear anything you said. Could you repeat that?
Okay, yes. So I know in the beginning you said to access this program, someone needs to be employed. I guess what I'm asking is, would volunteer work count, or even a paid placement count? Or does somebody need to be employed in like a permanent position to access this?
So I would say that we encourage participants to be permanent, or at least like have a long enough contract where they can utilize the skills that are being learned through this program, because a lot of placements are it may be shorter than the 12 weeks that's required for this program, and I did say that the 36 hours can be condensed into a shorter time frame. But I guess the reason why we encourage like 2 classes per week is that it often takes a bit of time for them to let the lessons soak in and also to practice within their own time. So yeah, for now, we do offer this program mainly for those who are in permanent or long-term roles. Lindsay?
Yeah, so my question, and it kind of goes along the same lines as Shannon's, but just in terms of like the beginning stages when people come to you that are interested in this program. So whether it's the employer or is it normally that, you know, they've got this person on staff that they feel is either, you know, asking for more language training or could just benefit from language training? Or is it ever like the situation where someone is looking to hire a person, but they're not sure of their language ability, and like, would they be eligible to look into this program to see like, could I provide this language training for this person that I'm looking into hiring because I think they will make them, you know, the best candidate for this job. It's just that language barrier. I'm not sure whether, you know, they would be able to do it. And so could I access this program, or is it usually like they're already working at the employer?
We've had people with like different interests, so definitely employment service providers do ask us, like, if they are trying to refer a client to an employer, can they share about this support as something for them to consider if they are planning on hiring them. And we do encourage you to explain that if they are hired, that this is a service that they can access or reach out to us to ask for. I haven't had cases where it has led to like us actually enrolling the program. So it will be interesting to see whether employers do hire and then take on this additional support. The cases that we've had so far is that I guess the employees have been working for a bit of time or just started with their workplace, but are finding that there are gaps in their language skills that could be supported through this program. And in cases where we're not able to provide this program to participants and they are clients of NCC, we do encourage them to reach out to our volunteer coordinator and see if there are any volunteer tutors that could help them with their language skills at a more flexible time for them. And then we also have, I think Faye may have mentioned this, but if she did not, we have conversation classes too that are offered in person and online should they want to seek more practice outside of the workplace. So we are trying to identify other resources in addition to English in the workplace, knowing that there are so many needs out there and this program can't tend to them all. Thank you for your question, Lindsay.
Great, thank you.
Well, that was the last slide. And if anyone has more questions or think that this program will be useful for them in the future, that is my contact information. So I look forward to hearing from you after, and I will pass back the mic to Faye.
Hi, thank you, Michelle, for sharing about your program. So I will basically come to the end of our presentations. I don't know if anyone has any other general questions or comments to share about our presentations or any suggestions, or we are open to hear it. Okay, so I guess we're good. So again, I think to pretty much for me is to reflect on this whole thing is that the New Canadian Center really hope to continue with our partnerships with working with especially other Employment Ontario agencies. Again, if you guys have any tips on how and have any questions on when you guys are working with newcomers, we are also happy to be part of your case conference if you guys are open to it. Just want to kind of put ourselves out there is that we are always open to having discussions if you guys have like immigration questions about a particular case. I think the big thing is always wondering how do we share this information with everybody. There's so much out there. Yeah, and yes, so I think really much that's it. So just thank you everyone. I really appreciate you guys being here. If there's nothing, I don't know if Michelle, do you have anything last to say? Okay. Thank you. I hope you guys find this useful.
Yeah, it was a lot of information, and we're reaching the end of today, so I think I'll just let people go early if they would like to. Thank you for everyone attending.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.